Hey, I wanted to name something very real as we start today. And maybe you noticed it. There was a longer gap between episode 2 and this one than I would have liked. But that's almost the point of what I want to talk about today. Because maybe this episode is just on time. Maybe the reasons why we think we're late on stuff on our timeline in life. Maybe it's for a reason. Life happens. The way that we process the world happens. We are continuing to become. We are becoming. And this podcast is literally about the fact that your life is not over. And today is about that. Today is about there's this timeline that gets made up. I don't know where we pick it up. We compare ourselves to others. We look around and we actually have this ingrained in our culture default plan of life. You grow up, you get your education, you get a good job, meet somebody, you get married, have kids, save for retirement, blah, blah, blah. But who says that that's the way it is supposed to be or has to be? Especially if you've been healing, especially if you've been parenting, especially if you are navigating a world that was not designed for how your brain works. You didn't miss the boat. You're standing in it. You're not behind. You're becoming. And if you're here for the first time, I'm Jeremiah. Just another person navigating life like you are. This podcast is called Your Life Is Not Over. Here to remind you that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not alone. You are very unique and special, and you have so much that you can bring. And time is not up. And there is so much time. And maybe it was just the right timeline. I've been wanting to find a way to tell about this story, and I'm so glad that this topic, this theme presented itself. I want to tell you about, I tried to start to have that picture book timeline in my life early on. Because guess what? I got to have my dream job. I grew up listening to radio, but of course, lots of people do. Most people do, I would say, especially in my millennial generation or older. And I gravitated to it, though. I found myself even catching on to the trends or the patterns of what kinds of songs would come on when. That's not normal. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. That's a very cool thing. I could even sometimes predict what song was going to come on at certain times. And, after being in radio for a while, I'm like, yeah, maybe that means the music scheduling, the music programming could have been a little bit more unpredictable. But nobody else was predicting that song sequence other than me. But I would find myself pretending to be the DJ. I would find myself recording songs off of the radio, recording the jingles and the produced sweepers in between the songs. I loved it. And when I got into high school, and one of the projects, can't remember what the class was for, might have been for English, but there was a career study. We were supposed to pick, a career we were interested in and, look into it. What does that look like? Do your research. And I found out about radio was that it doesn't pay real good, and there's not that many jobs in it. There's not that much opportunity in it. But that's where my interest was. And so when I was a senior in high school, I made a concert commercial on my Windows computer, just with the Windows sound recorder, just minimal equipment, much like I have for this podcast. But I put it together. It was for a real concert coming up. I sent it to the guy who was doing the Christian rock show on the radio. I grew up Christian. I was into Christian music and Christian radio. And so I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh, that's actually pretty good. Would you mind if I used it on my show? Also, if you don't mind, I went ahead and told the program director at the radio station about you, and you might hear from him." And so I did hear from him. He emailed me. This was by email. And he said, "Hey, this guy told me about your interest and how you had made that concert commercial. Would you be interested in coming down to the radio station a few times and seeing how this all works, see our hosts do their thing?" And I was like, that was exciting in itself. I'm like, yeah, so when can I come down, And so I came down 2 or 3 times, sat in with a few of the DJs, and the program director could really tell, as well as I assume the people I was shadowing, that this did really interest me. I did have a natural interest in this, and I wanted it to sound the best it could. And so a week or 2 later, that program director emailed me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you're interested in this or not. It's not a huge opportunity, but we do have a 3-hour shift on Saturday mornings. We need somebody to work it. There's only a half-hour music. The rest of it's like programs that the computer automation will just play. But, we need somebody to come in, record the forecast, the weather forecast. We need somebody to, man that morning shift. We will train you on what you need to know. Would you be interested?" And so I did. I was totally interested. And so this was my senior year in high school. So I was still taking my high school classes, but Saturday mornings I would go down, do my 3-hour shift on the radio. And I got my taste of that, and I knew I wanted to do this. This is what I've dreamed about. This is what I've been in my room pretending to be the DJ, spinning the songs, hitting that post right before they start singing. And so this radio station was on the campus of the Christian college in town, Christian University. So I'm like, I know now. I've kind of got my future mapped out for now. Like, I am going to do my dream job. I'm going to go to this college I'm going to keep working at the radio station. I'm going to get a broadcasting degree. And so I did. That is part of my story. That is, once I finished graduating from college, they hired me on full time at the radio station. I loved it. I had so much fun. Maybe too much fun. Not too much fun, but I enjoyed it a lot in a way that, I would volunteer to give up more of my time regardless of what the payoff was, because I loved it. I enjoyed it. I think that, I got to wear many hats at the radio station, as people in radio know. The staffs are not that big, and there's still a lot to get done. And so I was updating the website, updating social media. I was helping with the events in the community, our station appearances. I was helping schedule the music, talking to the record labels about music that they wanted us to consider. And then I was, of course, doing an on-air shift. I got to do drive time, afternoon drive for years. I worked about every shift on the radio station as well throughout my 12 years that I was in radio. Meanwhile, in my personal life, a couple of years after I graduated, I did meet a special person that I really fell in love with and proposed to her, got married to her, started having kids in 2011. Again, I got married in 2009. We started having kids in 2011. But it was that, this is what you're supposed to do. This is the timeline. This is the outline of life that you just do. And I'm not saying that because I don't regret, how all that worked. Again, all of it's part of the process. But a lot of what I was doing was also coasting along. I don't know if it was just because that part of it was what I had dreamed of, and I felt like it was just kind of given to me. In a way, I fell into it. But, I think that how much focus I placed on that dream career did affect my marriage and my parenting. As much as I wanted to not be a dad and husband that was all about myself and, somebody who was still involved in all of the things and responsibilities, I left a lot of that on my wife, honestly. And remember how I said in my career study that there's limited opportunities and the pay isn't great. So I'm doing this. We start to have kids, and man, there's more expenses. The recession of, I think it was 2009, had its effects on the economy and how much I was getting paid. And so I got a second job, a part-time job. I bounced around from McDonald's to delivering newspapers to working in a contact center part-time, to working at a grocery store. My wife even, took a season of like, why don't I take on the second job, and worked at Panera for a while. But this was putting a lot of strain. I was not, money was tight. All the things that were being put on her, and I wasn't even there. We were barely getting by, and I was gone so much to be working, and other strains on the relationship that I put on it. But certainly it came to this point where it was like, we can't keep doing this. Like, we can't keep going this way. You've been at the same radio station for a long time, and I know you like doing what you're doing, but like, where's the promotion at? Where's the trajectory to where you get to keep moving up? Yeah, it wasn't happening. And so I was like, okay, I mean, very valid points. I hear you. Let's see. I want to see if I can, if I'm willing to move our family, if I'm willing to move to another city, have us move to another city, I bet I could get a better paying job. Again, opportunities are limited. So I did start looking at opportunities across the country. And I came to an opportunity to join the staff at Way FM in Nashville as their station director. And so I went through the interview process. They selected me. Did the in-person interview. And, we moved down there in 2015. And the pay was a lot better. But remember how you wear a lot of hats, and the staffs are smaller, and all of that. I was getting paid more, and this is not the way they presented it in the interview process, in my opinion. But, because they were like, it's not like you're going to be like in the office 5 days a week all day and then have to do a bunch of events on the weekends. But it kind of was like that. And that kind of was the expectation. And so I was gone just about as much as I was when I was working 2 jobs. And yes, the money was better than it had been. But in a lot of ways, unsustainable. But I was not prepared for that moment myself. And they, at my 90-day review, they said, hey, man, it's not working out, man. We're going to let you go. That was hard. I mean, though the way that it was hard, though, it also wasn't. I knew it wasn't working. I knew that I was not wanting to be gone as much as I was. And finally, I had an exit strategy. I mean, can you imagine how much longer I maybe would have just kept on with that grueling life? Because I still had the job. It was good. It was good that I lost that job at that time. And so that was the last time I worked in that career field, that job area. I got back to Nebraska, where I grew up. They'd already replaced me at the radio station. I'd already, used up my savings and my money to move down there and then, move back. So I moved in with my parents, me and my family. And I remembered that somebody that I had worked with at one of the contact centers that I had worked at part-time had told me that he had gotten a job at this pharmacy benefits manager. And he was like, if you're ever looking for a job, man, like, this is a great place to be. He emailed me. And so when I got back to Omaha, that was one of the first places I looked after I made sure that there wasn't still an opening at the radio station. But that ship had sailed as far as radio, and I had to accept that. But I looked into that pharmacy benefit manager, not even knowing what that really would be like, but they were hiring. And the pay actually wasn't that bad. It was still an entry-level position for their company. But it was something that I could grow in. And talking to people about their prescription benefits and, helping them order their medications through the mail, it was good. It was good. I worked with so many people on the phones, and then the people I worked with in the building, in the office, just such a mix of ages and ethnicities and backgrounds. We were all working together to help these people, and the people I worked with were such great people. It had an impact on me. It really opened my eyes to a lot of what else is out there in the world. And that was right on time. That's still where I work over 10 years later. And I have gotten promotions there. I have seen myself make more money than per year than I was getting at the Nashville radio station. But, and then, I briefly in episode 1 went over some of what I've been through in my life, but that marriage ended in 2021. And for some of the reasons I already mentioned in this episode, along with others, it's not really where I envision myself. It's not really along that outline of where you're supposed to be. It's like I then was having to figure everything out. And it's like, now you're approaching what people call midlife. And where do we go from here? And I am continuing to learn that there's so much left. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with figuring things out when you're 40. Or whatever age you're at. Whatever thing, major milestone, you're supposed to be doing in the world's eyes right now, and you are where you're at. You're not behind. You're not behind. In the last few years, I've gotten to do even some interim leadership positions at work. And it got back into, I had to deal with it. I had a failed leadership experience in Nashville. But I wasn't ready then. And in some ways, I still wasn't ready. But I learned so much in my leadership role where I work now. Because even in the past year, I wasn't able to get back into that interim leadership position. And it was hard. Because I was like, man, I know I wasn't perfect at that. But man, I was becoming. I was learning more and more about what that looks like and how I do better at it. But it's all right on time. Even, in my experience with that this year, I interviewed a lot of times for positions this past year. And you guys know it was one of the hardest financial years of my life. But once I had to accept that this position, my permanent position that I've been in for a long time, is where I'm at, I really enjoyed applying what I had learned in my leadership opportunities, and then also applying, the help that I could get from AI, and maximizing my performance in this position I've been in a long time. And it's been exciting, actually. It's been cool to see my development and my growth. It's been cool to see in the past year going through all these things and looking at continuing to figure out who am I, why do I struggle with certain things, getting my ADHD diagnosis, getting into more therapy. It's all been good. And so I just want to encourage you that you are right on time. You're not too late. You're not behind. You're becoming. You're not behind. You are becoming. So, this was a little bit longer of an episode, but thanks for joining me for it. Like I said, I've been looking for a way I wanted to tell that story about finding the dream job, and then the dream job not being ultimately where I stayed. And I've found that a lot of the time as I've talked to people, I think that is very common, much more common than we think sometimes, that people's initial plan for their life does not just work out as planned. And even from the outside, those people that we think, well, this Joe over here, this person over there, like, it all worked out for them, and they've got the big house and the family, and they've been in wonderful careers their whole adult life. Guess what? There's more to their story too. And it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows either, probably. But good for them. Other people's success does not mean that we're behind. Good for them. Like, we are all on our own journey. It's our own story. We are becoming at just the right pace and getting the opportunities and the responsibilities that we are right on time. Your life is not over. Thanks for joining me today. You can find my Instagram page, instagram.com/yourlifeisnotoverpod. And I look forward to the next time that we can hang out. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today.